It's 6:33 p.m. We will call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Montgomery Selectboard, November 6th, 6:33 p.m. I will note, just for the record and those in the room, that the town website is having some issues right now. We don't know what's up, but it is going to limit people's ability to get the Zoom link, I think. So I don't know what to do about it, other than we'll try to figure it out and fix it so it's working tomorrow. So first order of business is to, as always, review and make any changes to the agenda. Are there any changes to be made to the agenda?
I have none.
No.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of October 16th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of October 16th as written?
I'll make that motion.
Great, we have a motion from Mark. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Leanne. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes of October 16th as written, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Me.
One abstention from Emily. Motion carries. That brings us on to Public Works. First item here is an update on the Longley Bridge Road project. Dean Pierce from Northwest Regional Planning is joining us tonight. He's been our municipal project manager for the project. I can't recall where the collective understanding of where things are, to be honest, after different emails and not knowing who's on them. So I guess, Dean, to start, do you just want to give a quick synopsis of where we are status-wise?
Sure. What is before the board tonight potentially is a request to approve a change order, which is essentially something that would amend the agreement with the contractor. The contractor has been on the site. They did the work that could be done this fall, and they have gone away from the site with the recognition that they will have to come back and we will have to ensure that the plants that were planted survived in sufficient number. The change order is about some additional material that was needed to complete the job because there was more erosion after the original plans were done. So that's it in a nutshell. I can get into specifics about numbers if that would help. Charlie, or I can answer any initial questions if there are any.
I mean, my understanding is basically it's like 23,000 overage. Is that what, am I correct with that?
Yeah, that's how it nets out. And it gets a little, it looks a little complicated because of the process. The original agreement with the contractor was a little over $250,000. The change order will do something that seems a little scary, and that is to increase it by another $58,000.
Yeah.
And that would bring the total, the new maximum contract amount, to about 312. So from 254 to 312. But as Mark says, there are some things that were going to cost money that didn't cost money. And that's something that would be reflected not in this change order, but in what's the final change order, which is called the balancing change order. So the contracts are written in a way that it's essentially permission to spend up to a certain amount as long as the work is done. And a change order would need to be approved with these new numbers in them, or these larger numbers in them for these materials, if the contractor is going to get paid, because there's no way the contractor would be paid for that materials unless they're in the contract. So that's why it seems a little strange that more money is added to the contract than I and other people are telling you is actually going to be spent. But it's essentially a two-step process rather than a just one-step process. in addition to receiving the change order, which has these numbers that I've just described, there has been a spreadsheet submitted by the contractor, by the, I'm sorry, by the resident engineer, the person that oversees the contractor. That spreadsheet maps out where these lower than originally budgeted expenses will come from. And that's where we get to that smaller figure that Mark just mentioned, and that we get the net that is considerably smaller than this $58,000. That's the total. Does that help, or are there questions that I can answer?
So there'll be another change order after this one then?
Yeah, there's
credits with the.
Yeah, when projects like this are done, the one of the concluding acts is what they call a balancing change order, and that's where all of the numbers are essentially brought together. But it is not customary for the change order like the one that's been presented to the town to do all of that balancing. The balancing happens at the end, and this is a step to get to the end.
Yeah.
Should a change order not have been presented prior to the changes taking place?
Yeah, so change orders are expected with projects, and typically they're approved before the work's done.
Right, and that was something that we discussed at length in previous meetings when we had to have the engineering firm to oversee the engineering firm to oversee whoever else was supervising this whole catastrophe. And I think that we made it pretty clear that we expected any change orders to happen proactively and not retroactively. So I'm wondering why we're in this position now.
The thing I'd say is that while change orders are usually done in advance, they're not always done in advance. The fact that this one is being proposed in this way is not causing alarm among the people that I've worked with or am interacting with at VTrans. So apparently it does happen. It's not ideal, but it does happen. And the change order process is supposed to happen in advance, but it can't always happen in advance. I'm with you. Ideally, the construction inspector, the guy whose job it was to watch along the way, would have been able to see that there's a lot more material that's going to be required, but he didn't, and he wouldn't know until he's presented with the numbers on the amounts of fill, how much more than the budget proposed was actually going to be used. So the contractor himself didn't say, I'm going to need to go over by X cubic yards. And so it was really the construction inspector had to see the numbers in order to know, okay, you're going to need a change order to get paid for those figures. The thing I would say is, as annoying as it is, at least to me, it's a situation kind of like there was no getting around the fact that there had been more erosion and there was going to need to be more fill than was originally expected. There's just no way around it. It's like going to buy tires and they tell you one of your rims is shot. You're going to need to get a rim before you can put the tire on. And that's kind of what happened here. It's just that no one said, oh, you're going to need to get a rim until the tire was going to be changed, and it had been changed.
If there's no objection, I'm going to recognize the man frantically waving at the camera. Larry.
There we go. Having been a clerk of the works and a project manager for years, this is very, very unusual. The contractor should have, as soon as he saw the site, reported the fact that he needed more materials and worked with the town from that point. He did not. This is a very unusual circumstance, and I don't think the town should be financially viable to have to pay for the request for more money and after the fact. there should have been a communication with the town and the road commissioner and all of that before the work continued. He should have obviously seen that there was more erosion ahead of time. And on 3 occasions of going to the site, I did not see a site engineer on the site. That's all I got.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
So I think, I think at the end of the day, as Larry points out, like, I think the biggest concern is what's this do to our bottom line? Like, how much of this comes out of our pocket, given what we're seeing with overages on the project? And Dean, you did lay out this afternoon when I asked you that, where we stand with the grants. Do you just want to quickly cover the total amount we've got in the 2 grants, as well as what the match is and how that plays into what we're seeing?
Sure. So I'm just going to look at my notes here.
Yep.
The town originally got 1 grant. It got an estimate. That estimate was more than the grant, so the town went and got more money, and so it ended up with 2 grants. And if you put those grants together, it tells you what the maximum construction budget would be. And that number, as I understand it, so if we were about a year ago, we were thinking the maximum construction cost that we could possibly handle, it would be $485,000. There were $485,000 in the grant plus the town match for work. So 485. There was a follow-up estimate of the construction costs that actually was better than the signs had been pointing to. So that was 385,000. And there, so the 485 has to cover 2 things. It has to cover the contractor, and it has to cover this resident engineer. And that amount, if you total the contractor and the resident engineer, was 443. So 443 is actually $42,000 less than what the grant plus the local match could pay for. So about a year ago, we were looking at, oh, gee, if this costs what the engineer thinks, it's going to still give the town a cushion of around $42,000. Where we ended up after the contracts were signed was surprisingly better. There was this 485,000 that grants plus match could cover. And if you add the contractor plus the engineer, it was about $300,000. So that meant there was a $185,000 cushion. It's theoretical, I get it, but it's just not, it's that the money that if it costs more, it would have to cost way, way more before the town is paying anything more than 20 cents on the dollar. What happens if the change order is approved? And I understand the concerns, but if the change order is approved, then you're still well under the maximum amount that it could cost. You just have this smaller cushion. And yes, you are paying more than you were signing the contract with the contract for. But that contract that was signed with the contractor was $100,000, more than $100,000 less than the budget was expected. So I don't cite that as an excuse. I'm just trying to put it into context.
So Dean, if the ratio on the match is 20 cents to the dollar, this change order of 58,672, if I'm thinking about this right, which I may not be, would result in an additional 11,000 in match.
The net, if you take the credits into account, it's about $5,000 more in local expense than when the day that you sign the contract. But that's leveraging a lot more of the additional grant money that you have available. It's like this funding source that you can pull down from.
Yeah. It's still.
So
Yeah, I get the net change, but it's still match against a real expense. And if there are net savings, ideally we want to capture the entire net savings and not have, does that make sense? It's still match.
Yeah.
So,
You know,
so originally, at the 485,000, our town share was what, 75,000?
So let me pull my numbers up here. Sorry.
But then with it being less, our town share is less, because the whole project was less.
yeah,
So, because we're a percentage of whatever the whole project was.
yeah, 20%.
20%.
Yeah. So yeah, so we are coming in under budget.
Yeah.
We're just not coming in under budget to the degree that the savings,
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
it's still
Like,
gonna, yeah.
So we're,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's, yeah,
I mean, still with the overage, it's,
yeah,
we're still looking at probably 5,000.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get your point, Emily, and I agree with it.
Right, and I mean, I
so-
understand all of this, but on principle, like, on principle, this shouldn't be approved, because we very specifically said that all change orders were to be approved before the work went forward.
Yeah, and I guess and this is an expense to King's, not John Turner Consulting, right? So, in a way, part of me feels like JTC was the one that screwed up here. So, part of me wants to say, we're going to take however much money out of what we're paying you to John Turner Consulting.
If they're the ones that are supposed to be
Yeah,
overseeing
yeah,
the whole
I
project,
don't-
and we had to pay them to do that, and I mean, especially if they're not on site doing it, as like Larry's reporting, then I think that the issue is theirs. Had they been there, then they should have come to us immediately and said, we have a problem. We don't have enough material because of erosion, and the change order should have happened proactively. If this project were happening at my house, whether it was $5,000 or $20,000, like, the work's not going forward until I give my contractors the okay for that. I'm not new to the construction world. This isn't the way that it works. Just because it's a town doesn't mean we're on the hook for it. I think we need to go back to this oversight firm and let them know that we feel that they own a portion of this.
Okay, well, so the options tonight are for the board to approve the change order and move forward, acknowledging that it's not awesome. We could table the change order and request a meeting with JTC and have this conversation with them, if that's what the board wants to do, and then address the change order question. What's the consensus? I mean, if we want to have the meeting with JTC, I'd want to schedule that in the next couple days as soon as possible.
Yeah.
To have it so we can get this worked through.
Yeah.
But I think I mean, I agree with Emily's sentiment. Like, it's given how long we have been dealing with this, and the fact that we had to get this second oversight engineer. I mean, it does seem pretty absurd that all these people that were hired because we had to have them, that nobody thought or checked or like, dotted their I's and crossed their T's to come to the town and be like, hey, it's a valid argument for sure.
It is, and they knew going in that we were going to have more erosion. They knew it, and they let us do this.
Okay.
I think the fiscally responsible thing to do is to like call them to the table and find out what portion of this they're gonna cover.
Okay, so it sounds like the consensus that's developing is to not approve the change order this evening and try to schedule a call with JTC as soon as we can for the next, between now and Friday, I'd say. So Dean, if you want, I can circle back to you with some dates and times that might work. We can get it set up. And I guess I would also say, is Nydia the main direct V-Trans person that would be kind of the point person for the project at V-Trans?
She's who I interact with.
Okay. I mean, it might help. It might make sense to have her on the call as well. So
I will say that one of the things that I ran by her was exactly this. What if the town was not comfortable approving the change order? I did not approach it in quite the same way, but she did explain to me there is another mechanism, which is called a written order, which is basically an explanatory memo that could provide more detail than that spreadsheet. However, that doesn't do anything about the concern that I'm hearing, which is they should have asked for the change order before the work was done, and nothing that Nydia has in her that I'm aware of that she has, to offer as advice will get us out of that pickle. I mean, the fact of the matter is the work continued and then the change order came later.
Yeah.
But Lydia is the one, and I'm sure she would join the meeting if she can. So we should loop her in.
Great. Well, I'll try to circulate a scheduling email to find a date and time that'll work for those who want to participate in the call, and we'll try to get it set up as soon as possible. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dean, I appreciate you taking the time tonight, and I appreciate you herding cats on this project. I want to make it clear that there is a lot of frustration right now around it, but I just want to make it clear that that's not directed at you. I think you've been a great help trying to manage this. So just want you to know that we appreciate your help, and please don't feel like any of the frustration is directed at you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you. Thanks, Dean.
All right. So with that, we're going to move on to item B here, which is the truck purchase. So just to recap, if folks remember at our last meeting, maybe the one before that, we were informed that there were some big issues with truck 2, right? Truck one. We need to name our trucks because I can never recall. Can never recall what truck is what.
I don't have the names for
The
them.
one we put 30,000 in the last 2 years.
They're not nice names.
So truck 1 is leaking antifreeze.
It's leaking antifreeze into the front of the motor, and I took it to the international dealer, and they called me back and said we had 2 options. The first option was I could leave it there and they will plow snow around it because you cannot get parts to fix it. It cannot be fixed. International has no parts. There's 5 towns in the same type of truck, same boat. We tried to ask them if we get another motor for it because it's a lot cheaper than getting a truck. We can't do that. They said bring it back, keep dumping antifreeze in it, but it is going to blow out and it's not going to be usable. So it could happen today. It could make half the winter. We don't know.
Yeah.
We took it to Enosburg the other day, got 1 load of gravel and went through 3/4 of a gallon. It's $50 it's $120 for a case of antifreeze. So, and it's gonna blow.
Yeah.
I've looked around at 4 or 5 different dealerships, and I found a couple trucks that are just older trucks that are cheaper to get us by. And I've missed 3 of them. They can't find them. Everybody's picking them up because you can't get new trucks.
Yeah.
I finally did find one, and I went Friday and looked at it and test drove it. And it's Town J has it. Their new truck is in, so they're selling their spare truck. There is 2 other towns that want it.
Yeah.
So I told him I would let him know as soon as we could, whether he decided to or not. But it's a single axle. It's another international. That's all we can find. It goes good. It's a 2012 with 65,000 miles on it.
Okay.
It would do set right up, ready to go. It does not have a plow, but our plows fit right on it. So, but it has everything that we would need to get by.
Yeah.
I mean, it has the plow frame and everything.
Yeah, just the plow they have is just an old. We don't need it. Any one of our plows will. If we have a truck down, we'll just use that plow. Plus, we do have a spare.
Yeah.
So it's the only one I've found at 5 dealers, and I found out about this one through the dealer. So.
And what are they asking for?
20 or best offer. They would take 18.
Okay.
And the reason we're looking at getting a spare truck is, say the truck goes down and we have to hire somebody to plow for us. It's better off for us to just have a spare truck.
Yeah.
Because it'll pay
Well,
for itself.
I talked to the other day, and he's right up straight too. So if we gotta
Yeah.
talk to him,
So that's the
and
issue too.
Derek can't plow like our main roads,
Yeah.
our small roads. But and at one point last year, all 3 of our trucks did break down.
Yeah.
So when we were forced, I worked I worked the night shift 4 times last year. I came in at 10 at night and worked till 4 in the morning. The guys came in to do my route so the trucks could do the other 2 routes, get done for the school bus. So if we can avoid that, it'd be great. Whatever, we'll get by, but it's inevitable for the other one to break, but
And even at that price, I mean, even if we keep it for a couple of years.
we'll still get that out of it.
Yeah,
Getting rid of it.
we'll hold that equity out of it.
Yeah, it's not, we're not gonna use it enough where it's gonna be, we hope not.
Because we.
Yeah.
I mean,
But in the spring, there's 3 of us, we'll have 3 trucks too for mud season 2, so.
we need to look at replacing that truck number 1, you know, that's.
Everybody I talked to is,
Yeah,
International is 24, it's a minimum of a year to 18 months to get a truck. And right now, they're 2 years out to get a dump body and plows. So if you ordered one today, it's up to 30 months to get it.
Yeah.
So it's future, you know.
Yeah.
So,
And just to clarify, the stuff going on with truck 1, this is all, none of this is covered by any of the warranties anymore.
there's no warranty on, we have 3 trucks, there's only warranty left on the newest one.
Yeah, just.
The other 2 are completely out of warranty.
yeah,
What year is truck one?
16,
it's a 6.
so about just under 100,000 miles on it.
Yeah,
So hypothetically, you would expect to be able, knock on wood, best case scenario, like get 100,000 miles out of this truck that you looked at.
Usually they're, most towns, I think we are as well.
Well-
We're trying to do a 7-year turnaround.
yeah,
7 to 8 year turnaround is around 100 to 110,000.
Okay.
And this one's like 92, 4, I think, on it right now. So we'd hope to go to, if the 7 years, just do 7 years now to be replaced. But
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm asking,
Yeah.
like, the truck that Jay has for
Yep.
sale, you're thinking you'd be able to get
oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
hopefully 100,000 miles out of
It's got
that,
a
which
little
would
rust on
be
it, but it's
Yeah.
not- it's
2 more years, 3 more years, something
yeah,
like
oh
that.
yeah, it runs better than the one we had. I took it for a ride, drove it 5-6 miles. It shifted good. It went good.
Yeah.
It's
And is the
actually
one we have a possible parts
no.
truck
No,
This is a single axle. That's a tandem. Totally everything. That's a
Everything's different.
2012,
Our-
2016. It's
Nothing's interchangeable.
not
Okay.
very little. Very
Our-
little.
our idea is
Okay.
when truck 1 gets fixed, this is just a spare truck. Probably trade both of them to get a new truck.
Well, right now the parts.
It's-
The part is International cannot get parts. I think South Royalton, Rochester, Canton, and there's one other one. 4 towns that have the same truck around the same year, are all same issue, and they all actually blown out where they can't drive the truck.
Okay.
I know South Royalton's been 18 months, can't get the part. International just can't come up with a part, and they're trying to engineer a new part. They wouldn't sell us a new motor because the new motors do the same thing.
Yeah.
And they can't get one anyways. They can't get parts. It's awful trying to get anything out of these. Just they're not. I don't know if the factories aren't putting out or if they can't get the materials to make the parts. I don't know. Nobody knows the answer to it. And I tried everything, motor, everything, and trying a different motor, and they can't make it work. So I mean, it could last 2 months. It could last 2 days. They couldn't give me an answer on timeline.
And something like that would cost.
They didn't even give me, the part itself is almost 4,000, they said. If they could even get it, in 18 months they can't get one. And there's 5 trucks ahead of us at International. And they own every dealership in New England, so there's no other International dealership to go to try to get a part. They own all of them.
Yeah.
If they have one at one place, they just ship it here, but they can't get parts. International just can't get parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reserve account right now, the machinery replacement fund, it's got $66,000 in it. The only action this year has been 13,000 out for the tractor, 6 in for the sale of the trailer. But we still got, I believe, I talked to Aaron today, and I think we got 66,000 in the account, which accounts for those changes. So there is money in there. So I guess not to curtail conversation on it, but I think the motion would be to authorize Scott and or Mark to purchase a new truck to replace truck 1, authorized to spend up to $20,000.
He said 20 or best offer.
Yeah, well, I think
no more than 20.
authorize you to 20
Yep.
and
Yeah.
if you can get it better, then
Yep.
By all means.
I think we'll offer him equal.
Yeah,
It's well worth it.
yeah,
For the age and the mileage and it ran good.
that's why we wanna get right on it. 'cause-
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
they did tell me, he didn't tell me I had to, he said there is one other town very interested and another town that's contacted him. So
Larry would.
I don't think so, no. Okay. All right, well, is there a motion to authorize Scott and or Mark to purchase a backup truck from Town of Jay in an amount not to exceed $20,000?
I'll make a motion to authorize Scott and or Mark to make the offer on the truck from Jay up to $20,000.
Great, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Suzanne. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye. Do I abstain? No.
No, you can vote, yeah. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. So, we'll get after it.
I'll give him a call tomorrow.
Yeah.
Only other item on the agenda under Public Works is just the agreement for municipal assistance from the Regional Planning Commission. So in all of our grants that we do, they act as our municipal grant managers. They help us herd cats, do paperwork, submit forms,
Yeah.
reports. So this is pursuant to the SFY 24 Municipal Roads Grants and Aid Construction Project. And so it would be a fee of $1,000.
Yeah, which is well
which is well worth it.
worth it.
So the motion would be to enter in an agreement with Northwest Regional Planning to serve as municipal project manager for SFY 24, and amount not to exceed $1,000.
I'll make that motion.
Manager.
Yeah, municipal project manager.
Yeah. I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Mark.
I'll second.
We have a second from Suzanne. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. So I will sign this and get this back to them. Anything else under Public Works for tonight, you guys?
Do you have anything else, Scott?
I don't know. I don't know if you want to talk about beavers.
Oh,
We're gonna,
yeah, we're gonna be getting some.
we've had two places, we've closed the road once on Business Bridge, beavers have just taken over the world.
Really?
Yeah.
And Longley Bridge where that project is I've got an excavator, this is the third time to clean it out because they're plugging it within a day.
Yeah.
So
Why did they?
We're plugging the culvert.
They're plugging the 3-foot culverts,
So the water's backing up.
and covering over the road,
What culvert on Longley Bridge?
right where that
Right across
project
the
is.
road.
Right
Oh,
by
the one that goes
Yeah.
across
I
Longley
Across
Bridge.
the
wondered
road.
why all that
They-
water
they-
was there.
We've
They've
dug
dug
Oh
it
my
before.
gosh.
It's
Yeah.
to the top, so I got a hold of the game wardens.
Okay.
And our only option that's right is I got a hold of a guy that'll trap them.
Yeah.
And we've actually caught 3 over there that were 50, 55, and 60 pounds.
Oh my god.
Insane. He said he's never seen them that big.
Is it on Longley
What
Bridge?
is he trapping them with? It like catches of
No,
something.
yeah, not good.
Never-
Okay.
Yeah.
But he is charging us, so it's not gonna be
Yeah.
astronomical, but it's, it's gonna be
Yeah.
about $500-600 probably.
Yeah.
Vincent's, he's tried it, can't catch them because the water's not running, so they're not active. It's plugged again. I heard we had St. Ange go over with their big 330 cat, and they had like half a day trying to get that unplugged with that huge excavator.
Mm.
We thought we were gonna have to dig it out and change the culvert, but they got it with a telephone pole, and they ran a cable through it and left the cable, and it's about that big around, and it's completely plugged again. So I talked to Artie today, and they're gonna do it probably Wednesday. They're gonna try to pull, I don't know, part of a car through it with that cable or something. They're like, we had to close that road twice now because they flooded it over on the weekend, and we can't do anything with the loader. We don't have an excavator, so
Yeah.
it's we're gonna get a couple small. They won't be astronomical. They'll be small wheels, but just
Okay.
want to let you know the guy's trapping. He's helping us out wicked. Because,
Yeah.
we're getting an excavator twice a week
Yeah.
because we can't get to it with the loader, and we go over every day and try to clean it out the best we can by hand, but it's just overnight.
It's amazing how fast they.
They're massive. They're eating well, those things.
Yeah.
And they're coming up out of the river.
Yeah.
That's where you're catching them. Right, they're coming right up those stones. They just put in.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
The ironic thing is that was the Halloween storm that took that long to get out originally. 4 years to the day, we had the closing meeting on Halloween the other
Yeah.
day for that 4 years to
You
the
were
day.
standing there with it.
I
Yeah.
looked at all the guys. To reiterate the truth that Dean has been a
Yeah.
godsend with this project. He's
Yeah.
the only person that makes this understandable
Yeah.
and makes people accountable.
Yeah.
So he's been great. I
Yeah.
just wanted to hear that, but
Yeah,
he's gone now. But he's been great.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's good. Thank God he's helping out.
Yeah.
But okay, awesome.
okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
Have a good evening.
Thank you,
Yeah.
you too.
Thank you.
Tell Dave he's doing a good job on that grader.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that?
Tell Dave he's doing a
Yep,
good job
he's doing
on that
great.
Yeah,
grader.
he is. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
So I thought Billy looked a lot younger.
Yeah. No, he's doing good.
Awesome. So we're a little bit behind schedule, but we'll pivot to visitors now. So Larry, if you've got anything specific for visitors, the floor is yours.
Real quickly, I want to go back to the Longley Bridge thing.
Yep.
Have we done any negotiating with the engineering outfit that was supposed to have an engineer on site all the time? Which obviously didn't happen.
We have not, but I think what we're going to do is schedule a call with that firm and us and V-Trans and the contractor to all have a heart-to-heart.
My understanding, there was somebody there, the great big guy, Brian, he was on site most of the time.
And I would stop and ask a truck driver if there was an engineer on site. I get no.
Oh, you did? Huh.
Yeah. And usually an engineer on site wears a different colored helmet as well.
Yeah.
At least I had to.
Oh, yeah.
Larry, you don't happen to have like dates off the top of your head of when maybe you stopped by, do you?
No, I'd have to go back to my calendar. I remember once Anita and I both went together, and then 2 other times I went on my own, but the times we went together, I think it was after I had a surgery or something, and we were driving back home. Now, grant you, may have been under the influence of drugs, I don't know. But anyway, and I actually want, Emily, I want to say very good about your standing up to about the change notices. Very well done.
Oh, thanks.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is the Reagan Road Pump Station. But is there any movement there?
You mean getting the power up to it?
Yeah,
No, we haven't.
I think that's been 3 years now,
Oh, it's been about-
and I don't believe there's been any mishap. Is it really a potential project? Is it necessary? And you should know all your estimates you had 3 years ago aren't worth the salt they're written on right
No.
now.
Yeah. No, I think the challenge has been getting an easement from landowners to let us get the power across there. Last we talked about it, I thought that Benosh was going to give us an easement.
Yeah, I have
Is
to, I gotta talk to her and see.
Okay.
I'm sure. And then we did talk to Evan about, we're supposed to be meeting with Evan to come back out and see.
Evan is retired. That's how long it's been going on.
Evan is retired. I'm sorry.
No, he's still there. Yeah,
Well, I think you better look at it again because he tells me he's retired because I asked him some facts about putting power into a certain
okay,
place in, okay,
yeah,
okay. You bought a tractor. Did you buy a tractor?
yeah.
Did you buy a new mower? I understood our mower was shot.
Well, the tractor came with a mower, yes.
It did.
And
Thank
the
you.
tractor with the mower, pretty much the same as what we had. So it was a
Right,
tractor, yeah.
and in my last thing, and I was hoping Merle would be on tonight. How many listers do we have? Is it only Merle now?
I'd have to go back and double check if Jamie has resigned or not. I think it's Jamie and Merle. I don't think Jamie has formally resigned. But right now,
Well, I had a brain cramp that he had resigned and he just said, no, I don't know. But all I can tell you is the lister cards are way out of date. I mean, and I know that's a lot of work, but there's been a lot of property sold in the last 3 years and they aren't recorded on the listers cards, whatever. And, sale prices do affect, are necessary to get another appraisal all done townwide to keep up with, what is it, CPA or whatever it is,
CLA?
CLA.
whatever it is. Anyways, and that was a question I had. And I had another scribbled thing here somewhere, and I can't remember what it was. Any movement on the 2 abandoned properties on Mill Hill?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I thought somebody was buying one of them.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I got an email
Yeah,
from somebody interested in one of them that wanted some information, but I
Yeah.
can't remember when. But no, to my knowledge, they have not transferred ownership or moved.
They didn't sell at tax sale. Are you talking about Menashe's and the one? next door?
Yeah, no, I don't believe they sold.
What did Suzanne say?
I was just asking if they had sold at tax sale.
I thought one of them,
I thought one of them did, but I could be wrong.
yeah.
My understanding that Taja Holdings has paid their taxes, but it's still an abandoned facility, household, and it's just falling down. And the other one, both of them, if there were rats running around there before, there's rats running around there now. I just wondered if our health officer was still involved in this situation.
Not to my knowledge. We do need to find a new health officer. Our current health officer's term is up, and this is like the 3rd term that she's put in past when she said she would stop doing it. So we really do need to find a new health officer. I have a couple names that I need to chase down. We also do have a vacant building ordinance. We just do not have a vacant building ordinance officer. And so our ability to enforce that ordinance, quite honestly, has never really existed.
Well, frankly, you have so many ordinances and policies that aren't being taken care of in this town. You should repeal a bunch of them.
I mean,
And
yeah,
that is one of the ordinances you probably should repeal, plus the parking ordinance you repeal. You even admitted people are parking on the sidewalks when the ordinance says it's not supposed to be. I mean, why do we have those in place if we're not going to do anything about them?
yeah, I mean,
Junkyards are another one. I drive by a junkyard every day that just I can't believe. And I've had tourists mention that place to me, and nothing's ever done about it.
so
And you have to sign a complaint order, so that name is presented to the owner, and then he can come burn your house down for complaining.
okay. Well, that thing we can enforce. We do have a zoning administrator who, upon receiving a complaint, will issue a determination and go through the steps. But I understand what you're saying about, what comes along with that.
Is there a possibility of changing that so that people can
I don't know. I'd have to look.
ask for that support or enforcement
Well,
without feeling like they're putting themselves at risk?
I'm sure what they're trying to do is not have everybody just throw in the complaint that's a fallacy or something, okay?
Yeah.
You gotta reduce that, but I think someone's gotta be able to view those complaints and see whether they really require any attention, okay? Possibly. Anyways, that's me. I'm signing off the same way as I did earlier today, Charlie.
All right. Bye, Larry.
bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
So Larry was all we had for visitors. That brings us to old business. First item here is the streetscape project. So following up on the hearing on October 16th, we need to get back to the engineers with essentially what scope we want to proceed with, because the next step would be saying, these design elements we want, these ones we don't, and get that to V-Trans to formally review with the next steps in the engineering. So I guess I'll just open it up. Do folks have any feedback, takeaways, thoughts on the design that we looked at and the public comment that we got as far as direction on what we want to do next.
I've heard many positives about the parking down at the rec center.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as everything else, I didn't see anybody really opposed to what we had decided on, you know, the rest of the plans. I mean, I think it was unanimous that, you know, they thought we should tear down the old post office, you know, 98 Main Street, and big parking there. I mean, that,
I don't know about unanimous, but.
Yeah,
it was, yeah,
there was strong support.
strong support of it.
If not, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts or?
I mean, it didn't seem like anybody was like ferociously opposed to any particular thing. The curbing was a bit of a.
Larry's waving.
Larry has a different opinion.
Larry?
Thought he was,
I just have a different opinion about the raised curbs, that's all.
Yeah, that is.
I don't see the need for them, and I don't see that they're gonna do any good.
Can you remind me again? Somebody asked this, and I know that this came up before, but what was the reason that we couldn't put a stop sign on 118 coming in to town? Like just like before on the other side of the bridge, maybe, or just at the bridge?
well, it'd have to be on this side, I mean,
You mean making
Just a stop sign, not even a light or a rotary or anything crazy, but just like, why couldn't we put a stop sign right there on 118 heading north into town?
Wasn't it something about if we like redesigned that intersection, then the whole thing
Yeah.
had to be redesigned and it like.
But not even not changing anything about the roads, just putting a stop sign there so that when you came into town, you'd stop and then proceed.
Yeah, I can ask him again. My recollection was just big picture that you guys want a stop sign there? Great. You can also have the entire state highway.
That was really it, because that seems like that would be.
But I will ask him about a stop sign there and see if
I know there was a reason. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think if I recall, I think it had to do with that, and then I think it also had to do with like. Then there's two stop signs, and then there's people like backing out of.
Well, the backing out was you couldn't have a stop sign that people were gonna trying to back into a lane that was stopped.
Right.
But if you allowed traffic to, like you didn't put a stop sign at the shoe and you just had stop signs at the two roads that were filtering in right there, you know, like everybody can see each other and people, there's no like, I don't know, to me.
well, there's one on 242 already.
Right, there's one on 242 already, so I just don't see why there couldn't be one on 118.
Right, that's a
Suggestion.
suggestion.
But it may have been as simple as V-Trans just being like, no.
yeah,
Yeah, I think they said it was like then redesigning like that whole intersection and people couldn't back out into the road. I mean, I think it was like a can of worms, if I remember.
It should be a three-way stop sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do understand the
Yeah.
backing.
this way the parking is all screwy.
parking, yeah.
But yeah, I'll ask him again
I don't know.
about the stop sign heading what would be south on 118 or coming
No.
north.
Heading north,
Heading north
Yeah.
to that intersection.
Yeah.
I'll ask, yeah.
just out of curiosity. Yeah. But other than that, I mean, I know some people didn't like the curbs, but I personally see the use for them.
Okay, well if that's the degree of feedback, we don't need to belabor it. I'll feed that up to the engineers and they can get that next set of plans essentially going to the point where V-Trans can formally respond to them, which would be the next step.
Yeah.
They basically take them from a 20% deliverable to a 60% deliverable. There's a check-in on that, then it goes to a 90%.
Yeah.
So we'll tell them to move forward with that. I'll ask about the stop sign, and and then I guess so. With the 98 Main Street location, do we have a consensus forming that building is no longer a useful asset to the town as far as that property goes?
I feel
Seems like it's a liability to the town.
Okay, because if this is the direction we're gonna go, the next step would be to start getting some quotes on what it would take to take the building down.
Yeah,
Would it be reasonable to create like a little kiosk, protected kiosk for the ATM so that that can be maintained?
Yeah, so the two things here
Yeah.
that kind of run in tandem are the ATM. Is it possible to get something where we can still maintain the ATM somehow in that area? And the last thing is just trying to figure out the post office. So I can, if this is the direction that we do have consensus on, I can go back to them now and just say, you know, after discussing this,
yeah,
that's where we're looking to go. So can we work with you on coming back to a different location and see if I can get that conversation restarted? Okay.
because I know the ATM wanted to do some upgrades to the building, and it's no
Yeah.
use in doing that if we're gonna go that direction.
Yeah.
I mean, look at just put another kiosk up, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Great. All right, anybody else have anything on the streetscape stuff?
Is there no way to give the village any sort of little something even in this redesign?
No, and they're gonna get even more mad. We're talking about our next topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah,
the village can get their pitchforks out and come after us.
Yes.
No, unfortunately, like with this, it's not to say that we could never do something in the village or that we won't ever do something in
Sure,
the village.
sure.
It's just that right now, given everything happening, budgets, projects, the village is not, it's not happening
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else on streetscapes? Anybody has?
No.
All right, if not, we're gonna move on to the wastewater project update. So just as a quick check-in, because we sent out the survey, if folks are interested, we did send out that pre-vetting survey to folks.
Yeah,
We sent out 143, we got back a little under half of them.
Do you know how many?
We got back 68 plus 3 more came in today, I think.
671.
So we're looking at, I think, what's that make it, 51%, 50%? My mental math is not as quick as it used to be, but
yeah, it's about
okay. Unfortunately, even though it asked clearly to folks to indicate who they are on there, because we wanted to be able to try to start mapping out where issues were or where folks expressed that they did not want to connect, if that was an option. Unfortunately, like half of them came back without any kind of name on them. There's going to be a little bit of a challenge to using these to try to peg problems and try to connect dots. But as far as kind of the expressed, the summary of the concerns that were expressed, they kind of fell into some typical buckets, you know, financing details, costs, operations and management, things around financing, questions around billing, you know, for folks that are not on the water system, how are we going to bill wastewater if we're using water in, water out. Some questions about design, schedule, management, and then some very property specific questions that came up. All this has been shared with the engineers, and so we've taken these comments as well as the questions that came up at the last public meeting, and so we've got a pretty good deck of questions that we want to address at the next hearing that we have. So that's really helpful.
So out of the 68, how many were like, we don't want to have anything to do with it?
So out of the 68 that wrote back, there was 24 that suggested that they were not interested in connecting. Out of 73, I should say, because the ones I just got were yeses.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and I don't know, like some of these things you can often be like, well, take that ratio and extrapolate it, but I don't know if we can really do that with this, because I'm a little bit kind of the mindset that people who really don't like the project were more apt to respond than people.
Seems like something like this should have gone out before we even started about it. See if people are even interested, but I don't know.
I mean,
it seems like it's kind of behind them. I don't know.
we also did run like a 4-month-long process, inviting people to come and have their voices be heard and pick. Yeah, I wish it would. I wish people would participate in local, government and make their voices heard about things prior to having things happen. Yeah, Larry?
So these questionnaires went out to just the possible users, is that correct?
Yeah, the idea behind we called it a pre-vetting survey or a questionnaire. The idea was to get a read on ideally what concerns people have so we can address them at a public meeting. And then there were the 3 questions on there were essentially, I have no concerns at all. There was a box that said, I have concerns, and there was a place to write out what they were. And those ranged from, like we talked about, financing, scheduling, that kind of stuff. And then there was a box that essentially said, I don't have the survey in front of me, but it was basically, I have no desire to connect to the system. We did make it clear on the survey that, the survey was not offering an opt-out. Ideally, we're trying to figure out how many people out of the 200-something possible connections we're looking at eventually might not want to connect, because if we can offer that to people and have the financing work, I think we'd like to. I think the challenges that we're running into are, unless we have the user base that can support the project, the financing falls apart, because essentially there's not enough users to pay into the operations and maintenance and the debt service outside of the local option tax. It just won't work. And that's something we've said from the very beginning of the project. The other part of... Yes.
So a third of the 70, basically a third of the 73 respondents say they don't want to connect. Is that correct?
You said 24.
Yeah.
24 out of 73 checked the box indicating they would rather not connect.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All the work that you've done for this?
But again, checking a box on a form is not the same as having a conversation with people. And the hope was that having this next hearing would help address a lot of the concerns that people have. I mean, some of the folks that even checked the box as to, no, I'm not interested, went on to write what their concerns are. And I, respect everybody's opinion and expressing their concerns and all that kind of stuff, but it's
Were their concerns the reason they ought not to be connected?
Again, I don't know. Some people just checked a box. Some people checked a box and then wrote something under it. But, when it's something like, I don't want to connect, it's not affordable, and we haven't had the discussion of what the numbers are shaking out to be, there's things here where I feel like we need to have individual property owner conversations, and that was going to be the next part of the process after this public meeting, was to cover everything at a high level. And then we had scheduled 2 days for the engineers to be up here to sit down with each landowner who wanted to and walk through all the stuff on their property, so we can try to get people to understand what we're looking at, how this is going to work, financing, all that kind of stuff.
My problem is you've had multiple public meetings on this, showing people's concern and support both. Okay. And I just don't understand how something got voted through when we've already have 24 that say they don't want to be connected.
I don't know, Larry.
If you look at the vote, it shows that 150 people on Main Street voted for it.
So you don't want to conflate the vote with the survey, because the survey went out to every property on the user base. The vote was a vote of the town, albeit a small subset of the town. I mean, we have a lot more registered voters than 150.
By the way, you look tired.
Yeah? Thanks, Larry.
Let you be. I just don't understand how this is coming in at the end of all of it.
Yeah.
During when this should be all wrapped up. I just don't. I guess I didn't wear my sash, and I apologize.
It's okay, Larry. So anyway, that's the survey, which is
Yeah,
just that. The next item up has to do with the property purchase discussion. So if folks recall, since the beginning of the summer, we've been trying to talk to a landowner about purchase of a property to support the village system. This was the property that would service the disposal field. We had been going back and forth with the landowner for, I don't even know at this point, 6-7 months. And we were at a point in August, I think it was, where we had made a firm number offer. If folks recall, I think that was back in August.
Yep.
Presented that to the landowner. And then about 4 weeks ago, it became apparent that there was another interested party in town regarding the property. I had always thought that this other party had a concern with the use of the property as it related to the use of their abutting property. It wasn't until I met with those folks and realized that it wasn't a concern about the use of their property. They wanted the property that we were looking at for the disposal field. And as of last Thursday, I was informed by the owner of the property we were looking at that they had decided to sell the property to this other party in town. It wasn't a case of they're offering us this number, can you beat it? It was a case of I'm selling the property to these other people and not you. That leaves us in a position where we don't have a disposal field for the village system. I went back, I met with the engineers Friday, as soon as this happened, to recap everything. We went back through all the stuff we did. We looked at 20 different properties for this, and there's no other property that would work for this system unless the system was completely redesigned, which would make it unaffordable. Essentially, we could work with a much smaller property, but the system we would have to build would have multiple levels of treatment to the wastewater to make a site of a smaller size or smaller capacity work, which would make the project unaffordable.
because you couldn't just do the center and make it affordable and not do the village.
Well, no, so
I mean,
let's separate that out for a second. The affordability issue is that if we're gonna have a disposal system for the village, a treatment system, we need to have a property of this size and capacity unless we design a much more high-tech and involved treatment.
which is gonna cost a lot more.
Which will cost a lot more, yeah.
Yeah.
For the village.
For the village, yeah. Now, the
So
two systems are separate. They're not connected. Financing wise, to some degree, they are also separated out. But I need to have a conversation tomorrow with our partners at the state about what that financing picture looks like. And I also had a conversation Friday with our municipal attorney just to get a clearer picture of I guess what sort of legal project options there are. I am concerned that the state has invested quite a bit of money in this project, and I guess I need to talk to them tomorrow to tell them what's going on and see kind of what direction they are angling us. But we did talk through the steps with the attorneys and I am not saying we are going to do this, but just so that I knew what the process would look like, we did talk through what a process of, it's legally called condemnation, but most folks call it eminent domain, even though they're two separate legal things.
Yeah.
Just to have a conversation to know what that process involves. I am happy to share, with the board more about the conversation with our attorneys, but because that involves stuff that's privileged conversations with our attorney, I'd rather do that in executive session. if the board wants to enter into that.
I mean, my feeling is we probably should have locked it, if we knew this was the only site in the village, we probably should have locked this in before we spent a bunch of money designing something that had no place to go. I mean.
Yeah, and I wish that if this was a hard no
When we,
from the landowner,
when we
he would have
first
told
started-
us that 9 months ago,
yeah,
instead of dicking around and
oh, I know,
basically not. I mean, if it was a case of it's this much money or this much money, I get that, but
I don't wanna go down the road of taking somebody's property, that's all I gotta say.
okay, and that's fine. And I'm not suggesting that right now.
No,
I'm just
I know,
saying
I know.
that, yeah.
I know, but I feel,
Is the sale of the property closing already gone through?
Not to my knowledge. I only heard Thursday about this, although,
but
you
did explain that to a landowner that what the process was, or that you explained to the landowner that if he sold it, and then what would happen if, yeah.
Oh, I mean, I will explain to the landowner. I basically said, I don't know how the state's gonna react to this. And I told the landowner that, and again, this is hypothetical. This meeting is gonna be held tomorrow. And I'm just trying to cover all of our bases so I can know what's out there and not get surprised.
Yeah,
But I did tell the landowner that, if there's a scenario where the state comes back and says, yeah, no, we've invested enough money in this that we'd like you to go ahead and take that property. I don't know what that would look like.
yeah.
Did you want to tell us who the probable new owner is gonna be?
I really don't. I think if people want to try hard enough, they can figure it out, but I don't want to.
I think I did.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't, and I also want to say, I respect people's decisions about what they want to do with their property. It's been a frustrating process. And to Mark's point.
Sorry you're going through that.
Yeah,
So I guess the conversation tomorrow with the partners from the state is to let them know what the status is, try to get some feedback, direction from them as far as how they're seeing things, and then we need to make a decision about untangling. The conversation tomorrow will provide more insight into untangling the financing. I need to sit down with Aaron and go back through some expenditures, because a lot of the funding we've used, has been grant funding or subsidy. It was only recently that we entered into that first loan.
oh, okay.
So I need to go back with her and work out kind of okay, what do we have into this that's not, free money essentially.
Yeah,
And then work with the state to see about untangling it.
And none of that grant funding that we've used up to this point is funding that's if we give you this funding, but then you don't go through the project, you're
I don't know.
on the hook for
I need to go
because
back.
some of it is that
Yeah,
way.
there's certainly funds
Yeah.
involved here that were risk capital, planning advance monies. There's other subsidies from the state, but we've got
So-
5 or 6 different things in the budget that essentially need to go back and tease out individually, because the other, the projects can be separated. To some degree, a lot of the funding already is separated. Some of it's not. So for example, the CDS money from Welch, the 2-point-something million dollars, or Sanders, or whoever we got it from, I need to go back now and look at that and figure out, essentially, can that be unhitched from itself? Can we split it? Can we still get it? Because essentially, even though the two projects are separate, this is changing the scope of the project as it was pitched to funders.
yeah.
So we need to make sure that those funders that are offering us the money are okay with what we're doing.
So do we have sites in the center
Yeah,
locked in?
yeah, the center sites, we know they're locked in. One of them we own, and the other one, the property owner already said to us, yeah, it's yours. We just need to figure out a number.
Yeah,
So we have the property in the center to make the project work. And as far as the engineering goes, we can pivot and go that way. If the village system does not work, that does not mean the center system does not work. They're not connected.
Yeah, but do you have enough people to support just the center system? I mean, the center system is bigger.
It's a bigger
It's
system,
bigger than the village.
so we have to go back through and
Yeah.
re-crunch the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah,
But it just means teasing
Yeah.
all this shit back out again.
yeah.
So,
Mhm. It's a mess.
Look, and it's, you know, I feel like you feel.
So,
Yeah.
Should you just said
I
no
know.
at the get-go?
Yeah.
yeah, Larry.
so is there an alternate site on the other side of the valley
Alternate site for,
in the village?
no, we
For the
looked,
village?
we
Is there
looked
no
over,
Possible alternate site?
No.
Up on, West Hill rather.
on West Hill, no.
Yes, you haven't explored anything up there.
Well, we looked at 20 different properties within the vicinity of the village where proximity to distance would make sense and work. I mean, the farther out we go from the place, the more expensive it gets, exponentially to some degree. But yeah, and I went back over this Friday with engineers. I mean, to build the system we need at the cost that we need to do it to make it affordable, that's the only property that works.
Gotcha. I guess I was thinking of a site up on West Hill that wasn't any higher in elevation as the other side. That was all, because I know you gotta stay out of the floodplain.
Oh yeah. I mean, we need to be up at that magic elevation that used to be beachfront property back when this was Lake Vermont, for those geologists out there. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's where it stands. So tomorrow I have a meeting with all the partners at the state to talk about this, and then get their take on pivot and untangling.
Yeah.
I can let folks know what they come back with.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the status of that. As far as indirect discharge permit goes, we've paused any work trying to get that. We're still looking at the center one. That's next. It's not imminent.
Okay.
And we did get the ARPA agreement from the state, ironically enough, on Thursday. And this is the ARPA agreement from the state, which was for 2.7 million. I mean, we could authorize this and execute it tonight, but I don't know if this is going to change given what we're talking about now.
Right?
You'll know more about that tomorrow. Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's the status of that.
Yeah.
If anybody has a time machine, and they can bring us back 4 years ago at this point, and smack me as hard as you can in the face and say, don't do any of this. You're gonna regret it. I'd like that time machine. Any other questions on the wastewater project? If not, that brings us to new business. There is no new business, so then it would just be signing orders if there's a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So we have a motion to adjourn from Suzanne. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Leanne. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries and the meeting is adjourned at 7:47. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Larry.
Yeah,
Bye,
thanks,
Larry.
guys.
Thank you all for putting up
Bye.
with me.